Goal here should be spending and reducing spending as opposed to letting the president decide how to spend all the money instead of the Congress having input.
What are your thoughts on the push to have a moratorium on earmarks?
Well, I think we'll see how that works. You know, we did that in the House last year and it didn't save one single penny. I introduced legislation in the House, or drafted legislation in the House. There was never a place to introduce it because there was never an appropriations bill that would have said, let's not just not have earmarks, let's not spend the money. The goal here should be spending and reducing spending as opposed to letting the president decide how to spend all the money instead of the Congress having input on how to spend the money. But we'll see. It looks like that's the direction we're going, and at the end of the day, if it saved no money, it didn't do the job. And hopefully we'll figure out ways to reduce the budget by that 1% or so that previously members of Congress had argued for specific things, defense and otherwise, that they thought were good things for the government to pursue. But if you're not going to have that congressional input, let's also not spend the money. Let's really start right there and let's save that 1%, and let's find another 4 or 5% to save, because we cannot continue to spend at these levels and not become Greece or Ireland or Portugal or Spain. And so we really need to be focused about spending. And if we can eliminate 1% of that spending by eliminate earmarks, let's do that. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking the president is going to spend the money better than the Congress would have spent the money, because that's just not true.
Well, how would the president, I mean, Congress has the power of the purse, so how would the president?
Well, apparently the Congress doesn't have the power of the purse. If the Congress had the power of the purse, the Congress would say, here's how you're going to spend the money. But that would be earmarks. See, that's the constitutional question here that everybody ignores in this whole effort. The president spent $800 billion last year in presidential earmarks. $800 billion. That's 40 years of congressional earmarking. Now, that's what we really ought to be talking about. How did we let that happen? I voted against it. Every Republican voted against it, but the money still got spent. You know, we spent almost 28% of gross domestic product last year, the federal government did. I voted against all of it because we didn't even have a defense bill to vote for last year. So we just need to be sure that we're really focused on the right thing here. You don't get so bogged down in $20 billion that members of Congress specifically said, here's how we think you ought to spend the money, that you don't pay attention to the $1.5 trillion that the administration is spending because the President of the United States thinks that's the best way to spend the money. But we ought to be really focused on spending at all fronts. If a moratorium on earmarks helps that, fine, let's see. If it really saves money, or if it just lets Barack Obama spend the money instead of individual members of Congress spend that small portion of the money.